I'm Justin Moore. Welcome to Creator Wizard, your step-by-step guide to the business of being a creator. Today, we're going to be talking about what it takes to go full-time as a creator or influencer. So in this video, you're going to learn why picking a niche can accelerate your ability to go full-time as a creator, how to diversify your income stream so that going full-time won't be as risky, and the steps that you can take now to plan for going full-time in the future. Before we get started, if you want insider tips on how to grow your business as a creator and diversify your income, click the link in the description to join our free newsletter, and you'll also get a downloadable glossary of over 40 influencer marketing buzzwords, acronyms, and lingo that every creator should know. So today we're going to be speaking with Oliver Rotko, who makes content all around higher education and early career development. He's also currently pursuing his master's degree in economics. Welcome, Oliver.
Thanks, Justin. Really great to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us about how you first got started on social media and why you decided to focus on the education and the career development space?
Sure. So a quick background story. So I'm pretty much a real OG user of YouTube. So I've been basically following a huge amount of the biggest creators on the platforms from the start. So for example, Philip DeFranco from episode 1, and thinking about, for example, how this has affected me is I've been able to take in a lot of the things that has happened in YouTube during the last few years. Like if you think about Philip, he basically introduced a jump cut style that we are all used to nowadays on YouTube. In addition, I've always been really interested in YouTube as a platform, especially with the dynamics between the creators and the followers, and how in the ways that different creators have built their following over the years. And basically my change from or shift from consumer to future creator was initiated, like I'd guess with many others, in 2015 when Casey Neistat started vlogging. And I actually tipped my toe in the water for the first time in Germany, actually in Munich, during summer of 2016, when I was doing my bachelor's level exchange studies there for that summer.
Okay.
And I actually made a really big mistake there that I really hope that everyone would learn, at least from my mistake, not to do, which was basically copying Casey's production style and content almost to the music and the style of content that he shot. And I really got a lot of honest and direct and basically honest feedback about this, about being a copycat.
Okay.
And I quit that, and I came back to Finland in September 2016, had a 2-year break from YouTube, and then I started continuing with the same channel, but a different niche, which I guess we're going to be talking in just a bit. Also, I think a bit of context to your followers. It's good to know that I do have my background in business. As you mentioned, I'm pursuing my master's. I'm just about to finish my thesis. In addition, I do have work experience in B2B sales as well as digital marketing, especially in social media, analytics, and SEO.
Okay.
All of which are super important skills on YouTube, especially nowadays when the platform is so competitive.
Right. Interesting. So, you talked a little bit about, picking a niche because, when you kind of restarted your channel 2 years ago or so, you definitely kind of picked a lane, right? Like you're really focusing on this particular space. So clearly it seems like that was a conscious decision, right? Like, is that something why did you choose to do that? And like, did you see that choice helped you gain more traction?
Absolutely. So after this kind of initial failure in Germany, I did make a conscious decision on pursuing this very specific niche. So it basically came from a wish of helping my fellow students in Finland, especially with my experience of having to deal with international students at my university. I knew that they had a lot of problems that needed solving, and I think that they were missing a lot on the experiences, on student experiences in Finland that many of the local students had. I really wanted to give them those opportunities because I really think that ours is one of the best education systems in the world, and those people being having missed a lot of it, I think isn't good for our education system. It's not good for the country's brand, and it's also it's a big loss for those people as well. So there was really a big need for help that no one was giving, at least on YouTube. So I thought that there was a break, or there was a niche that really needed fulfilling.
Clearly you were drawing from personal experience, right? Like you saw that there was this opportunity, a gap in terms of the types of content online that was serving the types of people that you thought you could help. Do you think that someone needs to have expertise about a certain subject, like direct experience doing that to be able to make content around it? Because I think a lot of creators struggle with like figuring out what their niche is. Like, oh, I don't really have anything special about me or whatever. But like, what are your thoughts on that, and like how you can advise people to figure out kind of like what their specialty should be?
Absolutely. This is such an interesting topic and such an important topic. And I really wish that or hope that we can discuss this for just a while. Because understanding the fundamentals or the idea behind what is experience, what is knowledge, what is value to others is extremely important if you want to go full-time or even start YouTube as a hobby. When considering helping others. So I really want to preface this by acknowledging that the feeling of imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I do understand the feeling of asking myself, why should anyone listen to me on this topic? I have no experience or expertise. I don't have a degree in this field, right? And funny detail, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, my girlfriend is actually studying at the School of Business as well, and she is doing her thesis on imposter syndrome, and I'm really waiting for the results from the thesis because this is such an interesting and important topic. And
so you are her subject. Are you the case study of her thesis?
Sure. Let's say it that way. Sure. And I think that this is a topic that should definitely be discussed because it is unnecessary, in my mind. And I think that it holds a lot of people back without any good reason, right? And as you mentioned, I draw a lot of my inspiration and information from my own studies. However, it is really important to understand that I am not an educated study counselor, nor do I have any experience in university admission processes, one of the topics that I cover.
Right.
For example, for local students, Finnish students, we have a completely separate application and admission system to our universities compared to international students. So I actually have no prior personal experience in this topic. However, what I do have is a deep understanding of my target audience, which are international students who are looking to study in Finland. And I know that I know that they have a lot of problems and pain points that others are not solving, right? So to give you an example, the biggest pain point for my audience is actually the fact that information about education and early career development in Finland is completely spread around the internet. So for example, we have 13 public universities in Finland. And in addition, we have different governmental organizations that are operating under the Ministry of Education. So we have a completely public education system. And all of these organizations have different websites with different information with different languages. So some of it is in Finnish, some of it is in English, right? So this is extremely confusing to people who have never even been in Finland before. And they're only looking at Finland as a target country.
Right.
So what I'm doing on my channel is I'm simply taking all that information from the web and from my prior experience with dealing with the exact same problems as these people are doing right now. And I'm compiling that information into easily digestible videos that are simplified enough for people to understand it without any prior experience on the topic. And I really want your followers to understand that I think what is really key is that all of us, we're all better than someone else is at something. So most of us, for example, we have a degree from a school. You know, it could be a high school. You could have a degree from a vocational school, college, university. It doesn't really matter if you are a high school graduate, a carpenter. You could have a PhD in theoretical philosophy, right? All of us have information that other people don't. And on the other hand, some of us are extremely passionate about our hobbies. It doesn't matter what it is. All of us we're all good at something.
Right.
And the key again here is that all of that information that we have personally accumulated is valuable to someone else who is trying to get to the same point that we are personally right now. Right?
Yep.
So Sean Cannell, the founder of Think Media, who is a real big inspiration to me, as are you, Justin, I think formulated this really well. And I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said it something like this: when you go to a library, what kind of books are you looking for? What kind of topics do you geek over? And what topics make you talk so much that your friends cannot get you to shut up? When you figure that out, that is going to be the niche that you are good at. And that is the information that you need to get out to the world using, for example, YouTube as your media. So I think this summarizes this myth of having to be an expert on something. No, you don't. You have to have something of value that others don't have. Right?
Absolutely. And I think that's extremely poignant and interesting. And I think that I got kind of goosebumps when you were talking about that too, because I feel like it really does come down. Like the really interesting thing, I think, is that the internet has kind of democratized the ability to reach very, very specific groups of people who find you interesting, right? Because before, maybe you would have like a meeting at your local coffee shop or something 20 years ago or something, and maybe a couple people would show up to your like knitting class or whatever, right? But like now, or something even more specific than, like how to not kill plants or something, right? Like there's people have very specific like interests and niches, and there are other people out there who are just as interested in those things as you, and maybe you think you're weird or the interests that you have are weird, but there's a lot of people who don't, right? So, this dovetails really nicely with our next question, which is that there's a lot of people willing to pay you for the knowledge that you have, even though, you may not think that that's valuable content or valuable advice that you're giving. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different revenue streams that you have for your platforms, because I know, obviously it seems like your main platform is YouTube, but I know on your channel you have done some work with brands or university nonprofits and so on. So can you talk a little bit about like kind of what your revenue mix looks like?
Right. So currently, actually, my situation is as follows. I have all of my revenue comes from brand deals at this time. I'm actually I'm only 10,000 hours away from being monetized on YouTube. Although I would say to everyone, please do not rely on YouTube ads. It's not going to cover your costs unless you are in personal finance and you're the most popular YouTuber on that in that niche, or unless you're Peter McKinnon and you happen to be in a very profitable niche. But yeah, currently all of my revenue comes from brand deals. And as a really fun fact, that and this is totally coincidental, I checked it before we went online. I actually posted my first branded video exactly 1 year ago. So that's actually kind of cool.
Oh wow! From today.
From today, exactly 1 year ago.
That's crazy.
I checked as well. Last August, so 2019, I had 1,400 subscribers on my channel. And during that August, I signed 2 different brand deals on that very early channel. So I think this gives a lot of good context on for example different the stage at which you can actually monetize if you know what you're doing and if you have a niche.
And so the talk a little bit about who those brands were, because I think, or nonprofits, because I think a lot of people feel like their niche, who the heck would sponsor me in my niche, right? Like I can't think of anyone who, or like who would I even begin to approach? So given that you have a pretty specific niche, like can you talk about how that came to be, how you approached that?
So this is not a simple question, and I know this is not going to be the same case for everyone. I don't want to minimize the effort that you have to actually put into the sales and proactive sales in order to get these kind of deals. But for example, in my case, it just happened to be that when I restarted my channel with this niche, our university, without me knowing actually, they were looking for bloggers because they had noticed, based on research, that actually micro and nano influencers are growing in esteem, and that would be a great gateway for them to communicate to their target audience. And I actually didn't know this, and I basically contacted them via email, simply introducing myself, telling them what my niche is, who is my target audience, what is my mission, and what is my goal with the channel. It basically took one email and I was in a meeting, after which it took a while for us to set up the deal and the structure of the deal and the different procedures, for example, for the production and checks, for quality checks. So that took quite a while. But what I would like to encourage a lot of your viewers is to be proactive. A lot of brands, a lot of organizations, a lot of non-profits are looking for new and different ways to communicate to their customers and target audiences. And the fact that most people assume that or question, why would anyone want to pay me, is actually the most destructive question you can ask yourself. Actually, this was really well said by one of my schoolmates from the School of Business. When I was unsure of applying to a internship in my 3rd year, and he told me, Oliver, do not tell yourself that you are not good enough for that job. Let other people tell you whether you're good or not good enough.
Right.
And that encapsulates this perfectly. You will never know if you don't ask. Right. And this applies to everything: jobs, your jobs, a relationship. Right. You will never get a girlfriend or boyfriend unless you ask them out.
That's
right?
true.
The same goes to business deals. One more detail. I have to say that I was pretty lucky in a sense, because I was able to contact these 2 different non-profits. One of which is my university, so there was a lot of synergy there. But the other as well is serving this specific target audience, because taking into account what has happened this year with the job market and the loss in profits with different organizations. Usually when companies are doing badly and the markets are going down, the first thing that is cut from budgets is marketing, right? And I was really afraid that, okay, things are going really badly. These guys are going to cut all of their influence marketing budgets. So I contacted them directly, immediately, when I noticed that the markets are going down, and talked things through. And it actually happened to be that since they are non-profits, for example, the university, they have to get new students in every single year, no matter what, right? They have to educate people. The same with this other non-profit, which is a non-profit providing students in Finland with housing, they will still rent those apartments out to the students. And as a non-profit, it's actually owned by student unions in Finland. The market situation didn't apply to or impact their marketing budget in this way. So I was in a sense lucky. But all of this had to do with the different synergies and how these brands actually served the same market, the exact same target audience that I was. So in a sense, the original choice of contacting specifically these two was strategic, and there was a lot of thinking behind the decision.
So I think what's really interesting about, working with these types of nonprofits or these types of brands is that I think a lot of creators feel, or they get fixated on the number of followers that they have, right? And they think that they can't partner with brands because of that. But clearly, a lot of, like, for example, in your situation, like, there's a lot of value in the content that you're creating that these nonprofits can then repurpose, right? They can post it on their social media, they can embed it on their website. Like, there's a lot of other value that these brands are getting out of associating with you. And it's not just necessarily about how many people you're reaching on YouTube when you partner with them or things like that, right? So it seems like a really important piece of advice that you're giving is just like, let them say no, like pitch yourself, like say, this is what I can do for you. Maybe it's not, one thing that I recommend to creators sometimes is, hey, maybe instead of proposing that you're going to post about the brand on your platform, maybe you notice a brand that doesn't have a very good presence on social media, and you actually reach out to them and say, hey, pay me $500 a month and I'll create 10 photos or 10 videos for you or whatever that you can post on your page, right? And then you essentially, the credibility that your platform acts as your portfolio, essentially, right? So there's a lot of different ways or different types of value that you can provide to brands. So that's a really great piece of advice. So I want to talk a little bit about going full-time as a creator, because you've mentioned previously that this is something you're going to be able to do after you graduate from university. And so talk a little bit about how you made that jump or are going to be making this jump and how you came to that decision.
Sure. Yeah, actually, fun update to what you just said. I'm actually not going to graduate because my work, I had a lot of work during the summer, so my thesis was postponed a bit. But that's actually fine, because if you think about it, my channel is about education, and the longer that I'm able to stay at the university, the better, in a sense,
right.
Because I'm able to keep them
get more content out of it, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
But yeah, so I've been thinking about this decision for quite a while now, and as mentioned, going full time on YouTube, being a YouTuber. By the way, I hate the word because it still has some kind of an association of not being too real, right?
Sure,
it's not a job, right? But it's been something that I've been thinking for quite a while now, and as mentioned, I actually have a really comfortable 9-to-5, and as a senior marketing specialist at a recruitment company. So this decision on jumping from that job to go full time, especially at this time, might seem quite nuts for some people, right? To go from certainty into uncertainty, it's a huge change. However, the urge to do something of my own and the urge to really go for YouTube, especially since I had already grown these relationships with these brand partners for a good year now, it was too interesting of an opportunity to pass. I'm 29 currently. If I don't do it now, if I have a kid in a couple of years, if I go get married in a couple of years, if I get an apartment, that's going to make things so much more difficult, because I will have committed myself to a relationship or to a mortgage, right? This is a perfect time for me to jump and do it, because I can always go back into the workforce if I fail, which I don't, hopefully don't.
Right.
And when I if you think about the brand deals, for example, that I initially got a year ago, these deals didn't actually pay a full-time salary for me, but initially they actually made me enough money to invest in a lot of the gear that I, for example, have in the studio right now, all the lights and the camera and the microphones. And it enabled me to build a path for going full-time at some point.
Okay.
And also, in a sense, it also built trust, which is extremely important in this kind of field. Having worked with them for a full year, I had the opportunity to show them that I'm able to create quality content that brings value to them and their customers. And I was able to build personal trust in that I do what I say that I'm going to do. I will deliver
Right.
within the deadlines, right? All of the things extremely important. And this made it possible for me, when I made the decision to go full time, to contact them and tell them about my situation and about the stream completely transparently, and ask them if I could raise my fees enough so that I can actually do this financially. And as it happens, they said yes. And we updated our contracts, and now I'm able to go full time actually in exactly 2 weeks.
Amazing.
So again, building that initial trust, it might take a while, but when you're a YouTuber, when you're building your own brand, that also means that you have to build your trust towards partners as well. And that trust is going to be everything when you're making these kind of deals. And especially if you want to secure a long-term income with YouTube.
That's a really, really inspirational story, because I think, like you said, you built that trust, and then with that transparency, you were able to just basically say, look, like, will you support me in this endeavor? We've done these great partnerships together over the course of the year. Pay me more, basically. You just asked them, right?
Right.
And they said, yeah, they said sure, right? So all, like, the worst that they can say is no, and then you're no worse off than you were before, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about your future plans to kind of like diversify your business down the line, so that you're not so dependent on one type of income, right? Because one could say, okay, well, yeah, well, everything's great now, you know, you've got these two brand partners, but what if one of them falls out, or what if both of them falls out for some reason, and then what are you going to do, right? Because I think a lot of people, they fixate on the worst case scenario, right? So it's like, obviously it's important as a business to, you know, have some plans to further diversify your situation. So like, walk us through kind of like what your vision is for the next like 12 to 24 months or so.
Sure. Building basically directly on top of what you just said, even though I do have a good relationship, at least in my experience with these brands, and hopefully with in future with other brands as well. I'm a business person, right? I'm also a realist, and since we have no idea where the current situation is going, right? It could be that the market plunges next year, which I really hope that it doesn't. But this means that I really cannot allow myself to rely, as you just said, on these deals to last if, for example, we're hit by a huge recession.
Right.
So keeping that in mind, I do have plans to diversify my business into, for example, merchandise, right? I have plans on diversifying to paid products like guides. But most importantly, I think that for myself, especially considering that what I'm doing now is I'm transferring information, and considering that my viewers come from different backgrounds, from different countries, and they're applying for different universities and different degree programs. Most of the answers that I'm giving them in the comments, for example, are very heavily personalized, because the answers always depend on their personal situation and background. So I think that actually personal tutoring could be something that I could actually, or something that I should consider, because I've actually noticed, even after 50 videos, that there are some questions that are repeating continuously on the channel, and it takes me a lot of time to answer those individually, and especially since I have to personalize everything.
Right.
So I've been considering doing personal tutoring, or maybe even start something with a small guide or FAQ that answers some of those questions in a more shallow manner. And then if the person has more questions, they could contact me, book a time, and then we could, for example, talk for an hour and a half via Zoom or Hangouts. So this is what I've been thinking about. I don't yet have anything concrete on the table because I have a lot of things to set in motion before that.
Right.
But I'm always keeping it in mind, and I really encourage everyone to keep in mind that, as I said before, do not rely on YouTube ads. Also, you should not rely on a single stream of income, because there's nothing stopping it from being cut for any reason at any point. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm trying to be a realist. And if you go full time for YouTube, you really have to have a plan.
Great advice. So, on that note, like, what advice would you give to other creators who kind of have aspirations to go full time one day? It sounds like be prepared, have a vision, be strategic about how you're going to be making this decision one day. Is there any like nuggets of wisdom that you could bestow relative to like lessons that you learned over the last year or so, or just, if people are just starting out now, like, and they want to go full time one day, what would be like your main advice?
Sure. I think I basically have two things that I really want everyone to understand. First of them, I'm sure that a lot of your viewers have heard this multiple times before, but I want to repeat it because it's such an important point. You don't really need to invest in the best gear. Seriously. People like Casey Neistat, Philip DeFranco, Peter McKinnon, all of them started with simple gear that made the job or did the job. But of course, nowadays especially people like Peter, they live and breathe the gear, but that's also their niche. So that is why they have to live and breathe the gear. They have to get the newest gear, but they also are sent a lot of it for free to test.
Right.
So if you want to go full time, that's going to require some money, some investments. And I really advise people not to spend that money on gear, but rather spend it on education. Spend it on learning how to do YouTube, because the gear doesn't matter if you don't know how YouTube works. And you will end up wasting thousands of dollars on lights and cameras and mics that you really don't have any use for, because you don't have an audience who would care for the quality of your videos, right? And of course, it's always good to say, like, it's always ironic to say this, because nowadays I also have an EOS R, which is not a cheap camera. But again, I worked for quite a while with the brands to get the trust, which then again paid for the gear that I have now, which makes my job easier.
Right.
But I didn't start like this. I started with my phone, like most people. The second thing is that if you want to go full time, you really have to think of YouTube as a business from day one. So this really starts by you sitting down and defining your target audience, writing on paper. Specify your problem or pain that you are solving, write it on the paper, and build an idea of how you could potentially monetize this channel in the future. Write it on a paper. Please do not wait until you have 5,000 or 10,000 subscribers, because as we spoke before, that doesn't matter. That is a vanity metric. And if you think about a traditional business, like say management consulting, the founders of these businesses do not, as their first order of business, rent a huge office, buy fancy suits and brand templates from a design company, only to think about how they want to serve their customers afterwards, right? It doesn't work like that. When you set up a business, you first have to identify the problem that is existing on the market. After which you identify the target audience who might be willing to pay for your solution to the problem. And only after that, and after having a few successful tests with initial customers, meaning your first initial videos that are going to suck, they will start renting the office and start accumulating the tools that they need to scale the business. So starting a YouTube channel should work exactly the same way. It has to be a business if you want to grow it or go full time at some point. Right. At least it's going to make things quite a lot faster.
Super inspirational, Oliver. I mean, that's, for someone to have essentially started making money from doing brand deals and things like that a year ago to being able to go full time, I hope opens a lot of viewers' eyes to realize like it's not too saturated. Like you pick your niche, you can make it happen, like it's not too late to do anything, and so really, really great advice. So how can people find your channel or contact you, that kind of thing?
Sure. So my channel name is Oliver R, which I actually might change in the future because it doesn't come up in YouTube search. However, if you just simply search "study in Finland," you should find my videos ranking pretty high in the search results. But if your viewers want to connect with me, I'm actually on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Oliver Rotko. So that's Rotko. Send me a connection request, and if you could please just include a short message of where did you find me so that I know that you guys found me from Justin's YouTube channel.
Awesome. And we'll also include the link to his channel down below. So thanks again. This was great.
This was great. Thanks so much.
So I hope you enjoyed the interview. Make sure to check out Oliver's channel. And I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell to be alerted every time I upload a new video. And please leave a comment down below if you have any questions or future video ideas and you are one step closer to becoming a creator wizard. Don't forget, if you want insider tips on how to grow your business as a creator and diversify your income, click the link in the description to join our free newsletter. You'll get exclusive videos, worksheets, and insights on the influencer marketing landscape, access to special product discounts, first look at upcoming courses, and more.